Hello and welcome to Diaspora Weekly. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah, and today we are going to have a very significant conversation to do with the earth, the environment, forests, and everything. And I had a pleasure of speaking with an expert. When I say expert, he's a professor who has spent literally his career on developing methods that would augment forest preservation. Now, before you meet my guests, here are some factoids that you should know. The worldometer has the countries with the most forests. And hear this, you may laugh about this, but here's what they've got. They've got Russia at number 1 with 814 million hectares of forests. Brazil is next, 491 plus million hectares of forests. Canada is third, 346 million. United States, 310. China with 211. Before you come to DRC at number 6 at 151, almost 152 million hectares of forests. But here's the catch. If you're talking about the benefits of forests and how it helps environment, the density of the forest matters. And so globally, when you're looking for forest density, really you're looking at Brazil's Amazon and then DRC and the rest of Africa. Now, in developed worlds, they call them forests. Yes, from above, you can see trees and greenery and everything. But underneath, beneath the trees, it's pretty open. But when you come to Africa and also to Brazil, and the forests there are pretty dense. And that's where the offsets are hugely valuable, because as you know, the congestion of trees, plants, they absorb carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. So that process, I'm not a technical person, but that process called carbon offsets. And so the more oxygen that comes out of these forests, the better for the earth in general. So countries that are industrialized, factories that pollute, airlines that emit heat and everything into the atmosphere, they pollute. And so the forests are what mitigates the pollution. And so United Nations had this program called RED, Reducing Emissions Through Deforestation and Diversification. Now, the RED program is what is officially supported by World Bank. But DNT spotted a document from Norway, Norway's Attorney General, that articulated that the RED program is not sustainable because Norway started it, put a lot of money into it, but despite Kyoto and Paris, no country is putting money into it. People, because everybody is cash strapped, so they've rather the environmental protection, the earth preservation, and all that, they're inching away from World Bank supported to a private sector participation. Namely, the volume of offsets is now sold as a commodity in the International Commodity Exchange. Now, here's how it works. If I'm an airline, my board says, okay, we know we're polluting the air, but for our corporate social responsibility budget, we're going to use some of them to purchase offsets so that as we pollute, we encourage forests to be preserved so that it balances out. So that is the private sector dynamics of forest trading. Now, it's new, so most African countries do not know much about it. So some companies, mostly from the Middle East, They come, and I'm not going to mention any countries. They come and say, oh, we want the rights to your forest. Here's $10 million. And people, hurry up, where do I sign? And then they sign. Unbeknownst to them, there's a particular company that sold their forest rights for $10 million. And estimates have it that the company is going to get about $183 million for those rights. And so this thing is serious business. Now, my partner has a company that's advocating for a do-it-yourself forest trading mechanism. And he is the individual that I interviewed. So you're going to hear details about how this whole thing works. But at the basic, know this. Let's bring this to Ghana. Here we are, cutting down our trees to do Galamsey, messing up our water bodies, right? I submit to you that the money that some individuals are making in their pockets and destroying the forest for all of us, if we can pay attention to this program, we can actually preserve the forest and make same amount of money for everyone, not just individuals. But we have to do it the right way. In fact, we can make the same amount of money, if not more. So within the Ghana context, we can allow some people to cut down our trees and mine and destroy our water bodies for their own personal gain, or we can get serious about chiefs, landowners, traditional leaders, the forestry department can step in and say, enough of that. Let's get money from our forests the right way without cutting down trees. Preserve our forests, make money, and everybody is happy. So here is my interview with Dr. Bruno Marino. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Bruno Marino. If you see the background, if you see his background, the beautiful background, there's a reason for that. And we're going to delve into all that. Dr. Bruno is a renowned scientist. And I'll let him say the rest of it, many things that he's been able to accomplish. But anyway, Dr. Bruno, welcome.
Thank you, Jermaine. It's a pleasure to be here.
Very good, very good. You, first of all, why don't you tell us what about yourself? What have you done with the forests of the world?
Well, I've always had an interest in nature. And as you all know, over the past, say, 50 years, our planet has changed very dramatically. And the piece of the planet or the biosphere that I think is most important is that part of the surface that has trees, forests, biodiversity, indigenous peoples. These are the elements that sustain Earth and sustain humanity. So we must preserve these elements. But as you well know, deforestation and climate change are having a negative impact on the natural part of the biosphere. So in 2017, and actually before that, but formally at that time, we decided to offer some technology based on science that could tell us how much carbon is stored in the forest on a net basis. So that forest you see behind me, it has the above ground piece, the trees, and it has a below ground piece. That below ground piece is very, very important. And unless you measure that below ground piece and the CO2 that comes out of it relative to the amount that is drawn down, you cannot have a valid carbon offset. It is the net amount. So that's what I'm here today to share with you how to do this and how you may also do this in your area.
Okay. I think you just described the carbon offset in a very layman's term, but let me understand that the part where you said the above the trees piece. So the trees absorb carbon, right? And
Yes.
we also know that they release oxygen. Is that correct?
Yes, but they also release carbon.
Oh, those, okay.
Yeah.
So the definition of the carbon offset is basically the net carbon after the trees have absorbed the carbon that humans have produced into the atmosphere and what it releases. Basically, it absorbs more than it releases, and the difference is the net carbon offset. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, there's another way to think about this that I think people have seemed to understand. So if you have a bank account,
Mm-hmm.
there's a top number
Mm-hmm.
that is the net amount you have in your account.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have in the account.
Right.
But if you go down to the statement,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see, oh, there's a deposit of this,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a debit of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the deposit is the amount of carbon going into the forest.
Mm-hmm.
That is the credit.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount that goes out of the forest, that is the debit. So the atmosphere is kind of the integrator, right? That's your top line number
Okay.
that affects climate change.
Okay.
And that is the difference between the credits and the debits.
So interesting you use bank account. For those of us who constantly have negative balance, how does how
Well,
do we understand?
I like to say that it's a way to open a bank account with nature.
Okay, very good. Open a bank account with nature. Very good.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, now, what's your organization doing about it?
Well, we have developed a number of technologies that are ours, and we're also using new technology from space, and that satellite information is actually made available by NASA in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And with those two approaches, space and ground sensors, we can tell if a forest is a net source or a net sink of CO2. If it's a net sink, then that is an offset that can be sold, right? If it's
Okay.
a net source, then there is not an offset, but forests typically can be a sink for a number of years,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a short period of a source,
Mm-hmm.
and then a sink again.
Okay.
What that means, importantly, is that you must measure, you must monitor the forests all the time. Climate change is very dynamic, and the impact of humans on the forest is very dynamic. We
Okay.
must have a system
Mm-hmm.
that we can observe these movements.
Okay, very good. And to scientists and those of you who deal in this, it's a big deal. But to many of us, it's that big a deal. I mean, how come some nations they've cut down their trees and develop, build skyscrapers, build factories and everything, but others have to preserve their forests to save the world? From Africa, let me just play the devil's advocate. From Africa, we would say, look, you guys have forests. You cut them all down and developed and everything. We are on a poised to also do the same. But now we have to sacrifice essentially and save the our forests so that we will save the world for all of us? What's in it for us?
Yeah, that's a very that's a very good question. And let me just say that this is where I think the politicians and all of those involved in climate meetings, um, and indeed governments themselves don't understand that unless we save the forests, then all of us will suffer.
Mm-hmm.
But to ask you to save your forest, you must have compensation. And that compensation must give you the things you want: healthcare, education, roads, internet, all of that. But we can have all of that and still conserve the forests. I'll give you an example. About a year and a half ago, John Kerry, who is a climate czar for the US government, was in a conversation with Eva Gazeba. Maybe I mispronounced her name. She's a minister of environment for the DRC. And she said to John Kerry, hey, we have Chinese companies that will pay us to allow them to drill for oil in the Congo. And we want to do that because that is the only source of revenue we have. Our people are poor. They're in the forests. They don't have support. So what can you give us that will allow us to stop this drilling? And John Kerry had no good answer. The right answer should have been, we are willing to give you the support in revenue to conserve the forests that do both preserve the forest and give you the support to be a community in the forest that also protects the forest.
Good, good. All right. So while we're on that subject, rightfully, like this individual as John Kerry, I think it comes down to opportunity costs, right? If I cut down my tree and build a hospital or drill for gold or do whatever, the revenue that I'm getting is substantial. But if you're asking me to preserve the forest to save the earth for all of us, right? The compensation that you're talking about, would it be at the level of what I would have obtained if I had used it for other um, projects?
Well, I think it's a very complex
Okay.
set of factors, but most importantly,
Mm-hmm.
it's the price that you put on the carbon.
Okay.
And it is the technology
Okay.
that ensures
Mm-hmm.
that the measurement is correct.
Right.
And on a net basis, the carbon is in the forest.
Okay.
So if you have that high quality, then over very large areas, you can generate billions of dollars
Okay.
over time.
Okay.
But that hasn't happened yet, and that is what we are trying.
Exactly. So what is the disturbing trend that's going on right now in Africa?
Well, I think you know as well as I do that there are speculators of carbon offsets that come into a country in Africa, for example,
Mm-hmm.
might be a very impoverished company, and
Mm-hmm.
they may say, "Hey, here's $10 million. Now you give me the rights to your forests, and you can have 10 million." And they take it. Why? They need the money. But what have they given up?
Yeah.
Almost everything. biodiversity, forests, culture, resources. It makes no sense. And that is a symmetry that we have to correct and bring together so that all countries with forests have the right price for conservation to support the people in the forest and conserve the forest.
Okay.
That has to happen. It has not happened yet, however.
Okay. So maybe it's because these countries, African countries, they don't have the necessary information, or they don't have the know-how, or maybe they need the money like yesterday. They need the money immediately. So it's like I'm selling something. If you pay me hot money right now, I'm willing to let it go for pittance. Even though I know that if I wait out, I'll make much more. Is that what we're looking here?
I would say probably yes, but I mean, think about this. Um, USAID and other agencies, they have billions of dollars in funds to apply to this problem.
Okay.
So, what is the problem there? That those entities that have the funding, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing what we're doing? They have the money.
Mm.
So I'm not sure of the answer to that.
Okay.
But one solution to the conundrum that you speak of
Mhm.
is to re-engage the USAID, to
Okay.
re-engage the US government, to re-engage the Sovereign Fund of Norway, to say, hey, here is a different way to address the problem so that everyone wins.
Okay.
But we're so far behind that these countries have to have a boost right now
Okay.
to conserve their forests.
Okay. When the speculators come and entice these countries with pittance, and in the context of a country, $10 million is really a pittance. But
Right?
strangely enough, some countries are falling for it. So it begs the question, those who come in with the pittance and lure some, I guess, innocent
Yeah.
countries into that, what do those speculators do with the rights of those forests, the rights to
Well,
those forests?
it remains to be seen. But for example,
Mhm.
they may try and sell carbon offsets for very, very large amounts of money without knowing whether or not the forest is a net sink. There's no measurement involved.
Mhm.
They may decide to chop the trees down after they sell carbon offsets and sell
Wow.
the lumber.
Wow.
They can do that.
Yeah. Because they have total rights to the forest.
Right. But let me say one thing though, Jermaine.
Mhm.
So why does a government sell their forests? All right. So I know they need money,
Mhm.
but what about the people in the forest? Do they receive any of that money to help their livelihoods?
I
I
would,
don't
I
know.
would, I would, I would doubt.
So some of this is governance
Mhm.
at the highest level in a government. And that I have no control over.
Okay. What does your organization do differently? That if I'm country A and I say, you know what, I'm gonna look the other way when they come with the pittance, but I'm going to tough it out and give myself the opportunity to make a heck of a lot more money. What do I do?
Well, I think our approach is, in fact, to number one, um, implement our program at no cost to the country or land owner. no cost. Two, we have endeavored to provide upfront payment to the landowner. That can be complicated, however, and doesn't always happen. But the biggest differentiator between our system and the other ones out there is that we measure directly the amount of CO2 that goes in and goes out of the forest. That requires sensors. And those sensors provide only measurements for CO2. So the sensor only sees the CO2 molecule itself. So it's very specific.
Okay.
And the sensors don't lie.
Okay.
They make the right measurement. Then we have a series of algorithms that result in offsets.
Okay.
And those offsets are verified by third parties. All the data are available to the public, and they should be sold to voluntary and compliance markets, anywhere that there are buyers.
Okay, so and so if I own the forest and I go with your program, essentially what I'm doing is that I am doing it with you. I have information of precisely how much offsets we've realized, how much is being sold for, and what is my percentage and what is your company's percentage. Everything is transparent.
Right. I mean, we obviously have to have an agreement in place,
right,
a contract,
right.
And in that contract, we negotiate as you would in business. And then the contract starts, and we begin measurement. And typically, these contracts are 10 to as long as 30 years, 30 years long.
Right.
But let me say one thing, though, that's been very, very helpful. The NASA satellite data, this measures the CO2 in the atmosphere, all right? So most satellite data that you may know of maps the Earth. It provides imagery, right? It's a map. That is not an indication of the CO2 net amount. But this new satellite from NASA, this data, it measures CO2 in the atmosphere from the satellite down to the ground.
Okay.
That now becomes a very fast, although it's a lot of computation, but a very fast and direct measurement of CO2 to obtain an initial understanding of how the CO2 net amount is evolving for a project area. So number one, we provide that analysis at no charge, no cost. And with that blueprint, if you will, then I think one can make intelligent decisions about what to measure on the surface. And you can see what parts of the project area had the most CO2 net sequestered. For example, we recently used the satellite data to determine the entire carbon net content of the country of Sierra Leone. And with that map, one can see all the various features, the mangroves on the coast, some of the savannas, some of the forests, areas of deforestation. So that is a map that can provide vast amounts of information to make decisions on, and to provide a budget of projected revenue. So this becomes very, very valuable. We offer it at no cost. But it is part of our contract.
Okay. Now, if you can guesstimate some numbers for me, let's say a guy shows up and offers that 10 million pittance to me, and
Yeah,
I say no, and I
yeah.
go the route that you're describing. What can I stand to get? What's the difference? I mean, this is an estimate. Nobody's going to hold you for it. But I mean, it's been estimated that there's one particular country that sold it for $10 million, where they could have had earned about $183 million, you know, during this alternative route. How does that? What do the numbers look like with your approach compared to what these speculators are offering?
All right. So, for example, the difference that you speak of, I can illustrate this with a current project in the Shabunda
Mm-hmm,
region of the DRC.
mm-hmm,
And what you see here is a summary of that project. So, for example, we see that this project, based on direct measurement
mm-hmm,
of 91,600 hectares,
mm-hmm,
is that the average net removal
mm-hmm,
is minus 46
mm-hmm.
tons of CO2 per hectare per year.
Okay.
Now, if we sold that um, over the interval of the project, 2015 to 2020,
Mm-hmm.
that would provide a pre-tax revenue of $274.9 million.
For
So that's,
99,000 hectares?
yeah. So that yields um, $274.9 million in pre-tax revenue. That's
Wow.
5 years. 5 years. And that is at a price of $10 per
Oh,
metric
what?
ton, which is very conservative.
Okay, so yeah, just to put this in context, when you told me that you had the satellite mapped out Sierra Leone as a country, what was the size of the forest in hectares? Do you remember?
Um, yeah, it's very large. It's several hundred, it might be 300,000. I can't remember, but the point is, um, let's stay focused on this because
Uh-huh.
this is a reality.
Right, right. What I'm trying to do here is this. Here you are with 99,000 hectares that over a
Yeah,
5 year period can generate 200 and something $1 million, right? As you
yeah.
said. Now, we know Sierra Leone's forest is much larger than 99,000 hectares. So I'm using Sierra Leone as an example that supposing a speculator came to Sierra Leone and said, give me the rights to all your forests for $50 million. Even though the $50 million look very attractive, it tells you how much they're selling themselves short. Do I
Oh,
make sense?
yeah. Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
Sierra Leone has seven. Let's see. Yeah, I don't have the figure here in front of me, but it's millions of hectares, obviously,
Right. Right.
and not all of those hectares will be net negative, right?
Right.
But the average of the entire country,
Mm-hmm.
that is a figure of merit. The point is that if one can get this off the ground
Mm-hmm.
and work with USAID or another funder, then this type of business model
Mm-hmm.
can be very, very attractive. and will far outpace a single payment
Okay.
that then ties up
Okay.
forest land.
All right. Now the speculators on the market currently, the offsets that are being sold on the market currently has been described by some as quote unquote junk offsets. Why so, if you're aware of that?
Oh yes, I'm very much aware of it. In fact, in 2017, we published a paper saying just that. And the reason why is they don't measure the carbon; they estimate the carbon.
Wow.
But the forest carbon content is so diverse, it's so heterogeneous. There is no way to truly estimate carbon. You have to measure it. Just like you have to measure your heart rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to know it,
You're right.
you have to measure it. And so all these offsets, they've been called worthless.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is there's no provable means to show that those protocols
Mm-hmm.
have removed any CO2 from the atmosphere. There's no evidence for that.
So why are
There's,
people buying them?
number one, they're under pressure from their stakeholders or shareholders for them to say, oh, this corporation bought this many offsets. Maybe they don't care if they're real or not.
So they buy them just to check a box that, oh, we're helping with.
Right. And they're buying them cheap.
Okay. Okay.
So that's part of the challenge here.
Okay. So this is a case of people buying junk for cheap. They don't care, and it really doesn't help. It doesn't address the issue of uh, forestation or environmental protection. They just buy in just to check the box. Oh, yeah, we bought this. We've heard this is our corporate social responsibility. We purchased it, but it really doesn't help the environment. Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
Wow, wow. So how can we get involved? How can African countries get involved with your program and do the right thing for?
Well, I mean, we are involved in the DRC.
Mm-hmm.
We are involved in Sierra Leone.
Mm-hmm.
But we want more countries to be involved. We want to understand more about how we can provide a program
Okay.
with upfront funding.
Okay.
Um, all it takes is to fill out a very simple form on our website,
Mm-hmm.
and we then get in touch with you. We have a way you give us a map of the area that you're interested in,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can give you some idea of what a program would look like.
Okay. Can private landowners do this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And how does that work if some countries, private owners, do you get involved between the rights, I mean, with the rights between intra-country issues such as a government saying, no, you may be the landowner, but you can't do that. You have to go through government. Is that even an issue?
That is not within our purview.
Okay.
No.
All right. Okay.
I
But
mean, if information is required from us
mhm.
to clarify that with a government, they'd be
Okay.
happy to provide that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What is that website? I know we're going to put it on the screen, but so simply go there, fill out a form, and then you've started the engagement leading to
Yeah.
more money, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you heard it. You heard it from Dr. Bruno Marino. Dr. Bruno Marino has come up with what we call the direct measurement protocol. What is the direct measurement protocol? Now, the way forest carbon is traded is that they look at the area. That's why these areas are measured in hectares, right? Oh, you have 5 hectares. Here's an estimation of how much carbon offsets you're producing from there. And as you and I know, whenever you estimate, you're never on the money. You're either too high or too low, which means if you subject your forest area to estimation, they're either cheating you or you're cheating them. And you can bet the professionals who are paying money will make sure that if somebody is going to be cheated, it's not going to be them. It'll be you, right? So Dr. Bruno Moreno has come up with direct measurement protocol, which means we use satellites and install sensors to measure the carbon offset accurately. So there's no ambiguity about it, there's no ifs, there's no but. We've put it there. You, the landowner, get to know exactly how much is going to be sold so that you know what percentage is coming to you. Right now, people are signing up. Shabunda has signed up from the Democratic Republic of Congo. We have agents in Kenya, Dr. Nyakanjun in Kenya, and my friend also in Namibia, Tausi. Tausi is representing Namibia, working hard to bring Namibia on board. So Sofanidala is working from Angola. Angola, by the way, has the second largest forest volume in Africa behind Democratic Republic of Congo. And we also have an agent in DRC that's working. So people are signing up. But guess what? The company is going to be headquartered in Ghana. So it'll be a travesty if Ghana is not signed up. So if you're a landowner, if you're you own land that has some significant amount of forest in it, you want to get in touch, and then we'll make sure that you're taken off. So for today, for this edition of Diaspora Weekly, my name is Jermaine Nkrumah. Thank you for watching.